Okay, Bio 2, we're continuing on with Chapter 25, Hormones, Section 1, Hormones and Plant Growth. We're going to look at Part 2 of this section. Again, it's a very long section, so we're breaking it up. So our first part of this section is going to focus on the question, how do auxins, cytokinins, gibberellins, and ethylene affect plant growth? So today, we're actually only going to get to this first one, auxins, because it's the most important, or one of the most important ones. And these other three we will get to in our next video. So these are all different types of hormones that affect plant growth. So our first one that we're going to look at are auxins. And how we discovered auxins was actually by a famous scientist, which might not have known that he did work with plants, but his name is Charles Darwin. Remember, he's the one who did all of our work about evolution, but he actually did some experiments about plants as well. So Darwin and his son Francis carried out the experiment that led to the discovery of our first plant hormone. And they described an experiment in which oat seedlings, which is just a young oat plant, demonstrated a response known as phototropism. And this is the tendency of a plant to grow toward a source of light. So we're going to see this tropism ending a lot. Don't get scared by it, and just have a lot of nice words in here this chapter. So it's just the tendency, it's just plants' response to things are known as tropisms. So photo, meaning light, is the tendency of a plant to grow toward a source of light. So in our experiment, Darwin and his son Francis, they placed an opaque cap over the tip of one of the oat seedlings. So they put just basically a little stopper on the top of one of the seedlings. And this plant did not bend toward the light, even though the rest of the plant was uncovered. So you can see our plant on the left bent towards the light, no covering on the top. Plant on the right, covering on the top, did not bend to the light. So, however, if an opaque shield was placed a few centimeters below the tip of the plant would bend towards the light as if the shield were not there. So we can look here, both of them are bending toward the light. So this kind of showed us that the tip of the plant was kind of the control on whether or not plants would grow towards light. So the Darwin suspected that the tip of each seedlings produced substances that regulated cell growth. So in order for the cells to grow, they needed sunlight, and they were only present in the tips. And then 40 years later, so the Darwins did not name this, they just kind of discovered that it was in fact there. These substances were identified and named auxins. So auxins is our first important plant hormone that we're going to need to know the name of, auxins. And then auxins, they are produced in the apical meristem, which again is just the tip where new growth occurs, and they're transported downward into the rest of the plant, and they stimulate cell elongation. So it's just cells growing in length. So that's an important function of auxins. They stimulate cell elongation. I would know that for the quiz. They stimulate cell elongation. And so kind of some more just specifics on how auxins work is when light hits one side of the stem, the shaded part develops a higher concentration of auxins. So the light hits one area, and that's where our low concentration occurs. The shaded part develops a higher concentration. And this change in concentration stimulates cells on the dark side to elongate. So when they have a high concentration of auxin in their cells, they will elongate. So light causes it to move from the lighted area to the shaded area. Then the shaded area, since it has a bunch of auxins, will grow. So then as a result, the stem will bend away from the shaded side and toward the light. And recent experiments have shown that auxins migrate toward the shaded side of a stem. So that's again just kind of going back to what we just said, the fact that these auxins can cause plants to bend towards the light because they really travel from areas where there's no light to where it's shaded, causing the plant to bend. And then our next topic that we're going to lead off our next video with are called auxins and gravitropism, which might be one of my favorite words that we've learned so far. And then auxins, since they're also responsible for phototropism, they're also responsible for gravitropism, which is the response of a plant to the force of gravity. So we'll have a nice segue into our next video because we're going to talk about how they are responsible for gravitropism. So let me know if you have any questions.